Okay, now for decades, Marvel and DC have been some of the biggest companies ever, whether that be when it comes to comics, toys, and even merchandise like clothing. But when you have two powerhouses of companies that release similar kinds of comic books, you're bound to have one or two or... Holy crap! Oh lord. But like I was saying, it can be kind of hard to tell the difference between all of these characters that are different yet similar at the same time. So with that, in this video, I will be finding the difference between these copycat characters and who truly are the copycats. Thus, without further ado, let's get started talking about these copycat characters. And speaking of cats, the first two characters we're talking about will be Catwoman and Black Cat. I know the Gooners are gonna love this one. Now, Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, was originally introduced in Batman #1, released in 1940, written by Bill Finger and drawn by Bob Kane. However, she technically didn't take up the mantle of Black Cat until Batman #62, written by Tom King and drawn by Mitch Geralds in 1950. But either way, But either way, she surpasses Black Cat by like a landslide. Literally, Black Cat didn't come until 29 years later in The Amazing Spider-Man #194, written by Marv Wolfman and drawn by Keith Pollard. Now, Black Cat and Catwoman are kind of the bad influence characters, if you will. On one side, having Catwoman be someone that doesn't break Batman, but rather takes his eyes off the mission for 1 or 2 days. But I actually think that Catwoman kind of understands Bruce's life as Batman and how important it is to him. But then on the other side, Black Cat is kind of just like seductive. Basically, what I'm saying is Black Cat kind of just like lures Spider-Man into doing things that get him in trouble, and then she escapes at the last second and rarely appreciates why Peter does what he does. But on the other hand, in my opinion, Selina truly often even helps him with the cases he solves. No, am I saying Felicia never helps Peter as Spider-Man? No. Am I saying that Selina never is seductive towards Batman? No. I just personally think that Selina is a bit better of a character and more interesting to learn about and read. Now, believe me, I'm not saying Felicia's a bad character. I think she's really good and has some pretty good arcs with Spider-Man. But you know, that's just me talking. And speaking of talking, that's right, we're talking about the merc with a mouth himself, Deadpool, and the person he's copying off of, Deathstroke.
You're a fat brat, aren't you?
Funny! I always heard you were into kids. I started by your former master.
Now, Deathstroke actually came first in Teen Titans #2, written by Marv Wolfman and drawn by Romeo Tanghal. I'm probably pronouncing that so wrong. And on the other hand, Deadpool was released in New Mutants #98, drawn by Rob Liefeld and written by Fabian Nicieza. I'm so sorry, these are probably so wrong. I just remember that one drawing that Rob drew of Captain America that like completely deproportionized him. Completely off topic, but just something I just thought of. But anyways, Deadpool actually was created as a parody of Deathstroke. You see, Rob Liefeld, who co-created Deadpool, drew a lot of the inspiration from Deathstroke when he was designing the character. And also, their names are like extremely similar. Slade Wilson and Wade Wilson. Really, Rob? No, I'm joking. But that is like a pretty clear nod to the fact that he was definitely inspired by Deathstroke. Now, character-wise, they're actually both really similar, but different at the same time. I mean, on one hand, you have Deadpool, who breaks the fourth wall all the time, makes jokes, and doesn't really treat danger like it's in, like danger. Push that button! And on the other hand, you have Deathstroke, who's a killer mercenary that will stop at almost nothing to complete his missions, and he's I don't think I can say that word on YouTube. But ability-wise, they're actually shockingly similar. I mean, both are really good at combat, unpredictability, and they both have healing factor. Listen, I don't read a lot of Deathstroke, but like, when I heard that for the first time, I was like, what? Also, he got healing factor from a lab accident, kind of, and so did Deadpool, kind of. So, I mean, kind of similar, kind of. Anyway, the next characters that we're gonna be talking about are the speedsters of the franchises, Quicksilver, and the Flash. Now, Flash was first released in Flash Comics #1, written by Gardner Fax and drawn by Harry Lambert in 1940. And on the other hand, Quicksilver was first released in X-Men #4, written by Stan Lee and drawn by Jack Kirby in 1964. Now listen, I love Quicksilver, but almost every Flash version completely sucks. I'm not even trying to be mean, that's just a fact. Like, if you were to put Quicksilver and Wally West in a race around the Earth, it would probably look like this. Alright, Quicksilver, you ready? More ready than I've ever been. Alright, let's do this. 3, 2, 1. Wait, how does this work? Get right back up. Now, obviously, Flash and Quicksilver are very similar. However, when you really break down their abilities, you actually see how different they actually are. You see, Flash doesn't really just run fast, but rather he taps into the Speed Force, which is basically this near limitless energy that's like throughout all speedsters in DC. And it allows him to manipulate time sometimes, phase through matter, and steal or lend speed. Quicksilver, on the other hand, is just like fast. Not to say he's a bad character or anything though, because I think his personality is really good, as he's reckless but also loyal when he needs to be. And in my opinion, that's like one of the best personalities a fictional superhero can have. I'm looking at you, Johnny Storm, my G. But anyways, the next people we're gonna be I smell fish. That's right, the next people we're going to be talking about are Aqua Man and Namor, the Fish Kings themselves. Now, Aqua Man first debuted in the legendary More Fun Comics issue number 73, written by Mort Welsingliger, and drawn by Paul Norris in 1941. But Namor actually released first in Motion Picture Funnies Weekly number 1, written by Bill Everett and drawn by Fred Schwab in 1933. Some of these first releases, man, making me get out of breath. Now, for these two, I wouldn't say they're exact copies, but shockingly, Aqua Man is most likely inspired by Namor, despite the popularity difference. However, like I said, they still both are very similar with their backgrounds and abilities. They both possess super strength, enhanced swimming, underwater breathing, extended life expectancy. I mean, the only difference between their abilities might be the fact that, unlike the other, Namor can fly and Aqua Man can talk to sea life. However, Aqua Man is a lot younger, more diplomatic, and heroic, but on the other hand, Namor is much older, angrier, and, simp? Namor, calm down. Kinda feel like we left the version of Namor where almost any woman would have him on his knees.
You wish that was you, huh?
But like I was saying, Aqua Man and Namor probably have the most interesting and similar relationship out of all the characters I've talked about so far. Like, they were both originally seen as jokes, but they're both starting to gain popularity now thanks to new stories and games. With Namor gaining popularity from Marvel Rivals and Aqua Man gaining popularity from Zack Snyder's DCEU. But anyways, with that, let's move on to the final, yet in my opinion, most similar characters, the Joker and Green Goblin. Now, Joker came first in the Batman number 1, written by Bill Finger and drawn by Bob Kane in 1940, same as Catwoman. And Green Goblin was released in the Amazing Spider-Man number 14, written by the legendary duo Stan Lee and Steve Ditko in 1964. Now, the reason I say these two are so similar is because they're not only the main villains of arguably the biggest superheroes on the planet and of all time, but they're also like insanely insane. They both try to break their selected heroes emotionally, although I'm sure it's a lot easier to do that to Spider-Man than Batman, and they both treat danger like it's a joke.
Let your dear old Uncle Jay sort out these chumps.
However, like everybody on this list, there still is differences, like the fact that Green Goblin is way more power hungry than Joker, as Joker pretty much just does crimes for quote-unquote the fun of it. But Green Goblin's origin, unlike Joker's, that's pretty much unclear still to this day, depending on the variant, is very interesting with the whole chemical formula and the whole titan of a company that is Oscorp. It's all pretty interesting. But yeah, and also they're kind of skinny, but like really strong at the same time. Not really sure why I brought that up. But anyway, with that, what are some characters that you think are copycat characters with each other? And what were your favorite characters on this list? Let me know down in the comments. And with that, I hope all of you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a nice day or night. Jesus is king, and I will see y'all in the next one.